So I wanted to start my move and my channel back on just explaining the interesting apartment situation and showing off my frogs, but something else happened and I wanted to touch base on it. And I'm not allowed to blame anybody because I could not afford an autopsy. So we moved here about 2 months ago, and I had to have my mail shipped to Nathan's parents. So I had to order a new bag of cat food. It was shipped to them, and they brought it to us the same day. They didn't do anything to the bag of cat food. If anyone's noticed anything, there's no cat meowing. Crunch is not making any sounds. Well, there's a reason for that. Crunch has been my office cat for years. He's an anxious cat who couldn't handle being around Kevin or Lucy anymore, so he had to be separated. He loved to interrupt my videos and do his own little cat thing. He loved to ask for food. He loved Doritos. He was just such a sweet little bastard. A few days ago, Crunch passed away in my arms. And I want to explain what I think happened and why I'm upset. So Crunch was only 6 years old, and he's a cat that I rescued back when he was 8 weeks old and I was 16. I found the litter of kittens under a slide, and I did my best to rehome them, but I ended up having 3, then being able to rehome the 1, then having 2, which is Crunch and Kevin. Crunch had a lot of issues, I admit, but once I got everything under control with medication and dealt with everything, he seemed like a pretty happy cat. When we got the food that was delivered to Nathan's parents, I opened it and noticed it smelled yeasty. However, since it's a potato-based food, I had assumed maybe they changed the recipe a little bit. And me being my stupid little trusting self, threw out the bag and dumped the kibble into the kibble container. Once I began feeding it, I noticed my cats weren't immediately going for it, which is unusual because all my cats are huge foodies. Then Crunch started puking. He wasn't just regurgitating. He was puking. He was projectile vomiting. He was having trouble keeping food down, and he had some diarrhea. And then soon after, Kevin started puking up the kibble as well. It's not going through the system. It's coming right back up. Lucy was reluctant to eat it. Over time, Crunch got the worst of it. Crunch got really skinny, and Crunch got a URI, which I got amoxicillin from the vet for, and handled that. He seemed to be getting better. I was refeeding him with cooked food. So I was feeding him, and then he started eating on his own. He started asking me for chips again. He was having, he was coming back. He was doing his best, but he was still really, really skinny. Kevin and Lucy had no issues once I switched them to cooked food. Crunch was really taking his time getting better. Then we had our friend over, and she cut his nails. I'm not saying that had anything to do with it, but I am curious about stress levels. And then the same day, Crunch stopped eating. I went in there, I started force feeding, getting him to syringe, swallow. I tried to figure something out with the vet during COVID. And 2 days later, Crunch passed away. I came in here to feed him again, and if you're an animal person, you know when they're going to pass. You just know. I picked him up. He was so limp, and I wrapped him in a towel. I tried to feed him. He wouldn't swallow. He kept spitting it all back up. We weren't going to make it to an emergency vet. Crunch would have died in the car. So I sat with him comfortably on the couch, and within a half hour, he passed away. I live in the middle of the country, so an emergency vet would have been over an hour away. And it would have just been more stressful for him than me holding him while he passed away. I contacted the company of the kibble before he passed, and they just told me to return it. I couldn't really do that due to COVID, so I have it, I just haven't been feeding it. I updated them when he passed away, And they told me essentially that nothing will be done unless I get an autopsy, which I cannot afford an autopsy. So, no autopsy was performed. I'm still trying to fundraise to get Crunch cremated. And the pet food company, who I think is at fault, doesn't have to do anything. And what upsets me the most is most people just shrug their shoulders when something goes wrong and throw out the food and not contact the company. If more people who I know were having problems would have contacted the company, they would have taken me seriously. But no, nobody contacts the company. Nothing is made aware, and my cat died as a result. I am never feeding kibble again. Crunch was only 6. Crunch wasn't middle-aged for a cat yet. He didn't deserve to die that way. I left Heidi out in the living room so I can do this without interruption, because this is very, very important to me, and I am very, very upset. I honestly don't even know if I'll cry. I've been crying for days. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to fundraise to get Crunch cremated. I'll put how much the vet's asking here, and I'll put my PayPal and the link in the description down below. If you want to help, that'd be amazing. Otherwise, it's okay. I understand. I'll figure it out. I don't know if naming the company will cause issues. However, I am going to. My cats were on Nature's Domain, Kirkland. It is owned by Diamond Naturals. My cats were doing excellent on this kibble until this recent bag. And Crunch died. Crunch died. Please, just please be very, very careful with your pet food. Please, please, please tell the company if something's wrong. Otherwise, they're not going to believe the little guys. Crunch is gone. Forever. He's not going to come back. I don't know. I'm so numb. I'm so numb now. I couldn't breathe last night. I kept crying and crying. Because every time I look at the photos of him, he's looking at me like he loves me. He has those loving eyes that animals that love you have. And every time I see that, it just kills me inside because I couldn't help him. And I bought what killed him. This is just another reason why I encourage fresh feeding. Please, please do your research on your pet foods, report issues. I'm also curious, does anyone have any similar stories? Please leave it down below. I'll respond. Thank you for watching.